To date is the 22nd day of July 2020. 2 or 3 weeks ago, Kai Mills was the brave little tailor at the Marsh Harbor International Airport when Bakers Bay, under the direction of Dr. Livingston Marshall, tried to sneak over 100 Mexicans into the Bahamas and indeed Abaco. And what was disturbing about this is that Dr. Livingston Marshall went on national television and declared that Bahamians were unworthy and lazy and undesirable on Bakers Bay. That is a Bahamian throwing Bahamians under the bus. I call it black on black syndrome. In my video, if you watch my video at the airport, I also said it's a possibility, almost guaranteed, that these people is bringing COVID-19 into the Bahamas. Well then, that was 3 weeks ago. Today is the 22nd day of July 2020. And it's being confirmed that the Mexicans on Bakers Bay have COVID-19. And the way they have them stuck out there like sardines on the barge, and you got 5 or 6 of them in containers that only should be 2 in, is a recipe for disaster. It's a recipe for the virus to spread like wildfire. Imagine this Mexican, the one that they have in hospital now, had the virus for 2 to 3 weeks. And it got so unbearable, they decide to seek medical attention. The physician, Dr. Minnis, just passed a law and said if anybody that has COVID-19 and they disguise it as anything else, it is a crime under this authority. Well, the boat driver that brought him from Bakers Bay and the taxi driver that brought him from the boat to the airport was told that this Mexican had asthma. They know better. That is a crime. If they knew that he had symptoms, a doctor should know. And if the doctor said that he had signs of asthma, knowingly well that this Mexican had COVID-19 under the new law, it is a crime. And Kai Mills could say thank you to the universal God that gave me the wisdom to see and forecast the future, which is today. I said that these guys gotta bring COVID-19 to the Bahamas. And somebody said the incubation period has already passed. Who to say how long this guy had COVID-19? He didn't report it until it became unbearable. So he could have very well, very easily had it when he came into this country. But I can assure you, the Bahamas and the world, Dr. Livingston Marshall, on this underhand dealing, acting like the Negro of old, Dr. Marshall is responsible for every soul on Baker's Bay that get this disease. I told you, with the breezes blowing the way it's blowing, that virus has spread all over Baker's Bay. What if this same Mexican came into Maxwell's, where we have about 4 or 5 different shops in Mexico, in Maxwell's? This Mexican would have destroyed what Hurricane Dorian haven't already destroyed of Abaco. One spark to start the fire. The spark have already been lit. The fire is not started brewing. Is it in Marshaba? Hell yes. Who's to blame? Dr. Livingston Marshall, that educated fool. That's why we call people like Dr. Marshall an ass and an idiot. That he could say Bahamians is not worthy of doing the jobs that the Mexicans is doing on Baker's Bay. Well then, Bahamians, if they get the virus, they got it because Dr. Marshall, through his underhand dealing with this incompetent authority, brought the virus in. The head official from the Ministry of Health, the lady said she got no health report, no test from these Mexicans upon entering. She was the competent authority, and if she didn't get it, they didn't send it. They didn't do it because Dr. Marshall, as far as Baker's Bay is concerned, has always been above the law. So Dr. Livingston Marshall single-handedly have destroyed Baker's Bay and Abaco as far as that thought of not having COVID-19 in Abaco. Because of Dr. Livingston Marshall, we now have COVID-19 in Abaco and indeed in Baker's Bay. I wonder what Mike Melbourne thinks about this. Mike Melbourne could find out if they had the test, because the government of the Bahamas didn't care whether the Mexican had the test, because the authority figure in the Bahamas, the head authority figure, says she got no testing. So Dr. Livingston Marshall could bring so many people into the Bahamas without the test, when Bahamians had to wait for months. Kai Mills were locked in Nassau for 2.5 months after I got the test. And I got the test twice. And they still disallow Kai Mills to come to his birthplace of Abaco. But Dr. Livingston Marshall could bring hundreds of Mexicans all the way from Mexico on the National Flag Carrier Bahamas Air into Nassau, into Abaco, without getting any COVID-19 test. Now, that's a result of him dealing and self-dealing through these government officials. I wonder who paid what to destroy Baker's Bay and Abaco with COVID-19 under the direction of Dr. Livingston Marshall, the dirtiest player to ever have entered Abaco, and indeed to be a partner in any resort. Dr. Livingston Marshall is an international disgrace. He ought not to be called a Bahamian. They should revoke his passport and his birth certificate and stamp him as a black, tall, ugly Mexican. Then send Dr. Livingston Marshall with the rest of the COVID-19 Mexicans back to Mexico. So tell me something, Dr. Livingston Marshall. How now are we gonna do tracing? You remember your girls at the airport that became porters? that handled the bags that were covered with COVID-19 and put into the bus with the Bahamian workers, all of them now have to be quarantined. When are you going to quarantine your staff that should have been in the office that became luggage carrier of the COVID-19 and put it on the boat with the captains that were COVID-19 free? They all need to be quarantined forthwith, all because of the underhand dealing of Dr. Livingston Marshall, a partner that has no love, no heart, no sympathy for the people of Abaco and indeed the Bahamas, when he said that Bahamians are too lazy and unworthy of waking at Bakers Bay. All the Bahamians on Bakers Bay, I would advise y'all not to go to work. Bakers Bay is not gonna come to your funeral, and y'all gonna die on that key because Dr. Livingston Marshall brought in Mexicans with COVID-19 to replace Bahamians that were too lazy. It's one of these Kai Care videos. Whenever you all see Dr. Livingston Marshall in Nassau, let him know that he's a player hater of Bahamians. You're live with Kai on WCAY. And Kai can tell you, I told you so. Watch my video. Everything I predict, the Universal God has gave me the brain to predict what's going to happen. And it has happened on Bakers Bay. The Mexicans, through the leadership of Dr. Livingston Marshall, has brought COVID-19 to the Bahamas and indeed my island of Abaco. You're live with Kai on WCAY.